Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. And before we get into the obvious news, I'm wearing my Red Sox shirt today proudly for the first time in a few years. We have to give our flowers to Craig Breslow. When Craig Breslow took this job to be the general manager of the Boston Red Sox, he was looked at as, a rebound, as a backup plan. Nobody wanted this job here as the general manager in Boston because the Boston Red Sox weren't acting like the Boston Red Sox. They were not spending. They were building through the farm. They weren't willing to give out these mega contracts anymore. And the last hitter free agent that the Red Sox had signed to a contract was Adam Duvall in 2023. The last $100 million contract the Red Sox had given out was Trevor Story ahead of the 2022 Major League Baseball regular season. And the last press conference the Red Sox held for any free agent was Masataka Yoshida after signing him over from Japan in 2023. If you noticed, 2024 just happened. It was a year where the Red Sox went 500. It was a year where the Red Sox had a documentary crew following them around all season, and they didn't have any of those kind of storylines, no big new free agent, no press conferences, none of that stuff to follow. And Craig Breslow was just completely shelled, saying that he's Chaim Bloom 2.0, that he doesn't have that killer instinct, that he's not going to go out there and get the Stars back to Boston. And I want everybody out there that's hating on Craig Breslow, I hope you guys, shut your mouths now. I really do. Craig Breslow stuck to his grounds. He called Alex Bregman's bluff. We talked about it a few weeks ago. He knew that when you looked at the other teams that were interested in Alex Bregman, that one, they were not as exciting of a lineup to join, and two, the ballpark factors. Alex Bregman's career numbers at Fenway Park, he's hitting 375, 490, 750 slash line, almost getting on base 50% of the time. 7 home runs, 15 RBIs, 24 runs scored, a 1,240 OPS. He's going to fit right in there with the Red Sox. And Craig Breslow is the reason that this got done. Craig Breslow knows that 2 of the top prospects in baseball, Marcelo Meyer and Christian Campbell, are coming up through the farm system. They're both projected to be infielders, that you can't give Alex Bregman a 6-year contract with those kind of talents on the way. He also knows that Alex Bregman's on the wrong side of 30, that you want these early years in his 30s. You don't want to be paying for his back end of his 30s. You know the numbers in this ballpark. You know he wants to win. You know he's the kind of adult that this clubhouse has been missing, the type of leader, a 2-time champion, a guy who says all the right things, seems to work hard. And Craig Breslow sticks to his guns and says, I'm not going 6 years for you. I'll do some deferred money Dodger payments. I will pay you $40 million on paper a year, one of 7 players in Major League Baseball getting paid $40+ million this year for 3 years. With an opt-out after each year, because, if you have the success that you can potentially have here in Boston, you'll opt out and get that 4 to 6 year commitment from someone else. But $40 million is going to be hard to walk away from, and you get these last couple prime years from Bregman with a chance for a resurgence for Alex Bregman. And now we talk about the Alex Bregman side of things. His bluff was called. He clearly wanted to go play at Fenway Park. He knows the numbers there. He knows the interest that was out there for him in free agency. He turned down a 6-year, $171 million deal from the Detroit Tigers. He turned down a 6-year, $156 million deal from the Houston Astros to return there. In a place where, they traded Kyle Tucker and Ryan Presley, a place where they brought in Isaac Paredes to play third base, and didn't really have a spot lined up for Bregman if he came back on a 6-year commitment. The Detroit Tigers have a nice, fun young team. AJ Hinch used to manage him in Houston, but Comerica is not a ballpark for hitters. It is just not. It's a pitcher's ballpark. It is why, the Jack Flaherty signing makes a lot of sense. And the Alex Bregman one was they'd have to blow him away with money. And when you just look at pure dollars with those offers, they were in the 20s of $1 million per year for 6-year commitment. And he's making $40 million a year for the next 3 to be in the best possible situation for him offensively. Alex Bregman knew where his bread is buttered. He knew where he wanted to be. He was just waiting for the right number. And a huge part of this equation was that earlier that day, Nick Pivetta agreed to a 4-year, $55 million deal with the San Diego Padres. I actually really liked that value on Pivetta for some rotation depth out there in San Diego. And that compensatory pick immediately went in the Red Sox pocket, and they handed it to the Houston Astros to go extend a bigger offer to Alex Bregman to get this done, to get him in here for the start of spring workouts, and to help his leadership and play translate right away to these young guys. And I'm just so excited. We talked about those numbers that Alex Bregman has at Fenway in his career, but Alex Bregman as a player is just simply one of the more underrated players in baseball, and it's because he hasn't been hitting those highs of 2018 and 2019. But in his so far 9-year Major League Baseball career, which is really more like 8 because of the COVID season as well as his debut season, he played 49 games, 39.6 career WAR, 1,132 hits, 191 home runs, 272 career batting average, 694 runs scored, 663 RBIs. He has led the league in walks before and walks almost as much as he strikes out, which is, a very nice thing in a modern day hitter. Career OPS plus of 132. So in his career, when we talk about all these amazing hitters on his team and off, he's been 32% better than the league average hitter during his tenure here. And I mentioned 2018 and 2019. Those were his best seasons. At age 24 and 25, he had 7.9 career WAR and 8.9 career WAR in 2019, which led the American League. 51 doubles in 2018, 31 home runs, 103 RBIs, walked 96 times, struck out 85, hitting 286. And then 2019, he was the runner-up for American League MVP. 37 doubles, 41 home runs, 112 RBIs, 119 walks led the league, 83 strikeouts, 296 batting average, 162 OPS plus, 152 OPS plus. Most of his career, he's been somewhere between 115 and 125. That's been the Alex Bregman that we've seen most of his career. With the dimensions at Fenway, with where he's going to be hitting in the order with Rafael Devers and Jarren Duran in front of him, an on-base steals guy, as well as, a very feared hitter, he is going to have the opportunity to reach those highs again. Now, I don't know if the defense is quite as good as it was when he was in his mid-20s. He might not be able to accumulate 7-8 WAR, but this is a guy who last season had 4.1 WAR, definitely has the potential to get back to being a 5, 6, maybe 7 win player. And that is such a huge addition to this Boston Red Sox lineup. We were bregging for a right-handed bat in this lineup. So many lefties, including Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony, 2 of the top prospects that are getting closer and closer to debuting in the major leagues. They both hit left-handed. There's Wilyer Abreu still on the roster, Tristan Casas, Masataka Yoshida, Jarren Duran, Rafael Devers. All these guys hit left-handed. And having this right-handed bat at the top of the lineup to balance things out, they were penciling Trevor Story in to be the number 3 hitter in this lineup. And while I still have hope for Trevor Story, he's a great defensive shortstop. He was a great hitter and a very durable player before he came to the Red Sox. The durability has been in question, but I think he can get back to being, a league average, slightly above league average hitter if his health can stick around for the rest of the season. He doesn't have to hit third anymore. He can hit, 5th, 7th, 9th, wherever they want to put him and worry about, just playing defense, staying healthy. And Alex Bregman is that middle of the lineup bat that Red Sox fans have been dreaming of the last couple of seasons, watching 500 or worse of baseball. So, yes, I'm going to victory lap. I am so excited, and I'm just very, very excited heading into spring training. And I always am, because baseball, it's my first love. It's something that I've always enjoyed. But, the last couple of years, the Red Sox flat out have not been trying to win baseball games. And it's been apparent with who they've signed, the amount of commitments that they've been willing to dish out in this offseason, where they traded for Garrett Crochet. They got that frontline lefty starter that they needed. They had all right-handed pitchers. They got a lefty in there. They went out and added, they had all these left-handed bats. They went out there and added Alex Bregman, the right-handed hitter. And that's before you talk about, the signings of Aroldis Chapman, who I think still has a lot of gas left in the tank. Before you talk about Walker Buehler coming in for depth in that starting rotation. I'm very, very excited for Red Sox baseball this year. Not just Major League Baseball, but for Red Sox baseball. They have a real chance to make the postseason, to make some noise, and to push, towards, they're pushing over that first luxury tax threshold. And I think they have the ability, if they perform well in the first half, to really be buyers at the deadline instead of, are they going to sell some pieces? This is a really, really great time to be a Red Sox fan. And I'm so, so excited for Alex Bregman to come in here, be that leader, be that right-handed bat that we have been begging for here in Boston. Thank you, Craig Breslow. Thank you. Now, I just talked about how Alex Bregman can be a 5 to 7 win player and how important that is. The margins matter in baseball. And a lot of teams have been saying, screw the margins. We are going to only worry about the margins in our checkbooks. How much are we in the black? How much can we profit this year? Adding a player that, adds 5 to 7 WAR to your team. Floor of 4. That's a huge shift from a team that finished 500 last year to a team that's, some people are picking to win the AL East. I don't know if I go that far, but they're definitely in that wild card hunt. And the margins matter in Major League Baseball. Whether that be, losing a hitter like Juan Soto and replacing him in the aggregate with Goldschmidt and Bellinger, whether that be, in the positive end of things, improving your lineup where instead of Harrison Bader, you add Juan Soto to the lineup. These marginal moves in wins above replacement, in value that you can add to your Major League Baseball team are just immense. And it's a big part of the reason why teams take that jump from, not being relevant to being in that playoff picture. And the Kansas City Royals made a trade a few years ago for the aforementioned Aroldis Chapman, trading him to Texas for a pitching prospect that hadn't really found his way in Cole Ragans. Cole Ragans has become one of the best starting pitchers in the American League. He's a guy that I picked to win the Cy Young Award last season, and he finished 4th in Cy Young voting. Absolutely nasty left-hander. That has really been a big part of the reason why that team jumped from 100 losses to the postseason last year. He just inked a 3-year extension through some of those arbitration years with the Royals, $13.25 million. When you can win in the margins at that kind of clip, getting elite front-hand starting pitching for that kind of price in a small market like Kansas City, that's how you make those big shifts. That's how you win baseball games. That's how you show the fans a great time, a great summer where they have something to look forward to. And these marginal moves, they don't stop there. Like I said, Nick Pivetta did the Red Sox a solid by getting that compensatory pick and signing. The Padres now have depth. Joe Musgrove, we weren't going to see much of him this season. Now the Padres, who have been talking about trading Dylan Cease and Michael King, their rotation with the two of them, with Yu Darvish, with Nick Pivetta, they got some life. That's a team that should be right back in the playoff picture again if they stay pat. And I'm just so excited to see what marginal moves continue to take teams that we aren't looking at as playoff teams right now that end up being in that playoff hunt come the All-Star break, come September. Because it's going to happen, and you win in the margins in baseball. These marginal moves matter. Taking, the second base position of the Boston Red Sox, where, guys like David Hamilton and Ceddanne Rafaela and all these guys played admirably. They tried. The Red Sox had so many second basemen since Dustin Pedroia left. Having Alex Bregman slot in there as a 5-7 win player with great defense up the middle, that's a big marginal move that helps you go from a 500 team to a team that's feeling really good right now. And these margins matter, guys. They really do. You win baseball in the margins. It's not just all about the star power. And I understand, some of these teams can't keep up with the Dodgers' way of buying the stars, but there's so many ways to improve your baseball team. There's been so many teams this offseason that have pretty much stud pat, not been willing to add to their team. And I'm just so excited that the Red Sox are not one of them, because they have been for the last couple seasons. Your team wins in the margins, and it's just absolutely fantastic to watch, to follow. And, whether it be a team like the Angels that, last season, they were not very good. Mike Trout got hurt again. Anthony Rendon, had some interesting comments and did not play most of the season. And now Anthony Rendon, it's been proven, that he's going to be out indefinitely for a long time. Anthony Rendon has played in just over 200 games in his time with the Angels since inking a $245 million contract. So far, he's been paid over $780,000 per game played for the Angels. This is a guy that they thought was going to be a middle of the lineup bat to help protect Mike Trout. But they went out there and signed Yohan Moncada. 1 year, $5 million. A guy who used to be the number one prospect in all of baseball, a guy who is a few years removed, but had a fantastic breakout season in 2019. Switch hitter, giving him the shot to play every day. That's really exciting. Zach Neto, one of the most overlooked players in baseball. This is a guy who, hit over 20 home runs, stole over 30 bases, hit for a decent average, played decent defense. He's coming back, from injury, but that's a really good player. Nolan Shanwell. I call him Mr. Patient on Solo Shot Swags. He has a great eye for the strike zone. He's a professional hitter at such a young age. That's fantastic. They go out there this offseason. They were the first to market guys. They signed Yusei Kikuchi to help raise the floor in that starting rotation. They signed Jorge Soler to add some power to that lineup that was desperately needed. They went out there and added in the margins. And this team's a lot better for it. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but the margins matter, and being able to show that effort to add wins to your roster, it should be applauded. There should be standing ovations. There should be, praise. That feeling of, joy and excitement and hope is what matters. Baseball is such a marathon of a season. So much can happen, but you don't want to go into the season dead in the water. And right now, per the Percoda projections, 3 teams that I wasn't going to give a shot anyway to make the postseason. But, the Marlins, the Rockies, the White Sox, 0% chance to make the playoffs. And it's hard to argue with that. You can say anything can happen, but it's really hard to argue with that because those teams are bad and they didn't try to get better. The White Sox tried a little bit. I will give them a little credit. They did try a little bit. They added some wins to their roster. They're not going to have more losses than they did last year, but they're still going to be a pretty bad team. And these margins, they just matter so much in baseball, not just on the back of the baseball card, not just for all-star votes and award votes, but they matter for the fan base. They matter for staying relevant, staying in the hunt. And with the new playoff format, I think that those marginal moves, are what the big star moves used to be. Not saying a big star doesn't make a big difference, but for that same money, you can go out there and win in the margins. The Tampa Bay Rays did it for years. The Dodgers did it for years before assembling the super team. You can win in the margins. You can take one man's trash, turn it into your treasure. And it is one of the most beautiful things about the game. You don't have to be, the big slugging star. You can be a Luis Ariz. and make an impact. Now, here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, with the throwback down the third baseline to this date in baseball history. And there was actually quite a bit to choose from here on February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. Hope everyone out there had a fantastic Valentine's Day with their special someones. But I decided to keep the Red Sox train rolling here because on this date in 2003, it was made official that the Chunichi Dragons released for an undisclosed payment first baseman Kevin Millar, who was batting .306, 16 home runs, and 57 RBIs from the Marlins, and he went to the Red Sox. Such a big move for Red Sox history. I know if you've watched the 2004 Red Sox documentary on Netflix, they make it seem like Kevin Millar was the driving force, like the absolute leader, best player, etc. on the 2004 Boston Red Sox. That is not true. But what Kevin Millar was an experienced veteran in the locker room, a guy that never got too low, brought great energy. He was a vibes guy. He was fun. And that's why his interview of "Don't Let Us Win Tonight," because then we got Pedro and Schilling, and who knows what will happen in Game 7, is one of the most electric and remembered quotes of this century in baseball. It's because he just never got too low. He always believed, he always pushed, and he made such a difference on that Red Sox team. A guy who got on base at such a fantastic clip. His walk in the ALCS against Mariano Rivera to start that rally was huge. He hit for a good average. He was a fantastic clubhouse piece. And that kind of marginal move took the Red Sox from a team that was heartbroken in 2003 to a team that, was able to break the curse of the Bambino and make Titletown in Boston again. And I have a Millar jersey that I'm not wearing today, but he's, one of the best analysts out there in baseball. He's super fun and electric still to this day on camera. And he was that same way. He was that spark plug for a locker room that officially was made that way here in 2003. And coming back to Major League Baseball with the Marlins and then joining the Red Sox. The rest, as they say, is history. Now, spring training is now kind of in full effect. Most teams have started to report. There's a lot of guys down there getting in work, playing catch in the batter's cage, throwing bullpen sessions. There's a lot to love about this time of year. Baseball is officially back. I know here in the Northeast, we still got some snow and some cold weather on the front, but spring baseball is back. And there's going to be a ton of breakout players this year across baseball. But I try to just talk about some young breakouts here in the major leagues for the 2025 Major League Baseball season. And I think, the X factors in the American League are for the Baltimore Orioles. This is a team that did not add heavily this offseason, is kind of coming off another sweep in the playoffs that they just did not look like they were ready to be there. Gunnar Henderson has become one of the best players in the American League, a 9-WAR season last year at shortstop. But they have two big names that need to take that next step in order for the Orioles to take that next step as currently constructed. The first is second baseman Jackson Holliday. Now, this is a guy who was the number 1 overall pick in baseball, the number 1 prospect in baseball, a guy who was killing it last year in spring training, and I said should be the opening day second baseman for the Orioles. They decided to send him down, saying he needed more at-bats against left-handed pitching. He tore it up. He had very few opportunities against left-handed pitching, but he tore it up, and they decided to bring him up. And he had this whole seesaw of not being an effective major league hitter. I think it killed his confidence a little bit. I think it took down his upside a little bit. But I'm hoping that he comes into the season motivated. and a impact player there, a 3 to 5 WAR player at second base, can really, really help raise the floor of this Orioles team. And I'm excited to see what Jackson Holliday has this year. And he's been talked about on a lot of different shows as, a breakout, as an X factor for the Orioles. But even more so, I think they're relying on Grayson Rodriguez to take that next step. And now Grayson Rodriguez is a very good pitcher. He throws gas. He's got great stuff. But Grayson Rodriguez is not the kind of guy that would be looked at as a typical ace pitcher. And mainly it's because of the control. He pitched to a 3.86 ERA last year, 13-4 record. He was a positive pitcher, a 1.4 WAR in 20 starts. So they're hoping to get more out of him. He has not pitched more than 122 innings in a season yet, but the strikeout stuff is there. He is striking out, 130 batters in 116 innings last year. So he's a guy that can potentially take that next step. The last 2 seasons, 94 and 97 ERA plus. If Grayson Rodriguez can, become a 110 to 117 ERA plus and become, the ace of this staff, that's a huge X factor. And a guy that I think at, the age of 25 has that potential to take that next step and be a big part of the reason why the Orioles do as well. But that's a lot of pressure being put on these young guys. I know they have Kyle Baradish and they have Felix Bautista, both coming back from injuries. Those are guys that were huge factors in that 100-win 2023 campaign, but did not pitch in 2024. We're going to see what happens with the Orioles, but they have, the most X factors, because are they going to take the next step? Or are they going to kind of just bob in the water here in 2025? On the NL side of things, the Nationals have, 2 of the most hyped rookies in Dylan Cruz and James Wood. James Wood looked real good in his campaign last year in the major leagues. I think that it's a big part of the reason why he is the, clear number 1 rookie in the 2025 Top Series 1 product. He played in 79 games last year, so almost a half season. 1.1 WAR, 9 home runs, 264 batting average. It's a guy that had a 354 on base and a 122 OPS plus in about a half season of play. Translate that over a whole season. That's an all-star. That's a rising star in Major League Baseball. He's the clear favorite for NL Rookie of the Year if he still has eligibility, which I believe he does. And I'm very excited to watch the Nationals. This summer I talked about it, how they're making moves and they have this young talent to by 2026 be a playoff team, and I think this is a huge step in that direction here in 2025. Dylan Cruz and James Wood taking that next step. CJ Abrams, screwing his head on right, and marginal moves that they made this offseason, bringing in Nathaniel Lowe, a champion that plays Gold Glove defense at first base. Things like that really matter, and the outfield with the speed and talent that they have there with Young, Wood, and Cruz. Very, very exciting time to be a Nationals fan as well. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out this show here on Solo Shot Saturday. I hope you guys, stay safe this weekend. I'll be back next week talking about, all the spring storylines and, news and notes and things that are going around the major leagues. But remember, it's a game. We all love it. For the most part, anything can happen. But these marginal moves, don't overlook them. Don't just give, the Diamondbacks their flowers for signing Corbin Burns, or the Mets their flowers for signing Juan Soto, or the Dodgers for signing whatever all-star you want to name. This offseason, the margins matter so much. And, there's a lot of teams that improved and a lot of teams that have X factors and breakouts on the horizon. Appreciate you guys. If you like the show, make sure that you like the video here. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and share the show with someone who loves the game of baseball as much as us. I'm Dom Anna, and I'll see you guys next.